Thank you for tuning in to the best parenting show on the internet, Post Daily Dose.
It's the Post. It's the Post. It's the Post. The Post Daily Dose. It's the Post. It's the Post. It's the Post. The Post Daily Dose. It's the Post. It's the Post.
Hey, good evening, Facebook. Welcome to another episode of Post Daily Dose with me, your trusted parenting advisor, faithful guide and servant on the healing journey. What's my name? Big Papa Brian+Post. So it has taken me a minute to connect to the Wi-Fi because I am in a foreign territory. And you just never know. You can't really depend on Sprint when you go to strange places. Even though it says you got signal, it's always very slow. And so I might break off here in a minute from you guys. But thank you for joining me for another episode. I just want to talk to you today a little bit about the many faces of trauma, especially when it comes to parenting difficult children. See, a lot of times we get so hyper-focused on our children's behaviors, our children's traumas, our children's struggles in school and with peers, with their siblings, that we forget that one of the most valuable reasons that child is in your life and in our life is to open the window to our own pain, our own trauma. And therefore in families, trauma has many faces. It's not just one. It's not just the face of your child. It's what the stress of your child invites you into. And normally that is experiences and traumas and pains that you haven't dealt with in quite some time. Good evening, Mom. And when that happens, because it's usually buried at a really unconscious level, it can become quite overwhelming. And so you can have an experience to where you're trying to focus on getting your child to behave a certain way, and they're completely stressed out, but the reality is you're completely stressed out too. And if your child has the most sensitive regulatory system, if your child has the regulatory system that is more underdeveloped than anyone else's, and let's say they're 10 years old and you're 40, and when they stress, they regress to 18 months old, and you're 40, and when you stress, you regress to a 3-year-old or to a 2-year-old, who's actually supposed to create safety in the environment? And this is really why understanding trauma and understanding how fear and stress play out in all of our lives is so important, because all of us have the capacity to become stressed out. All of us have the capacity to move into affect dysregulation. And when we move into affect dysregulation, it opens us up to some pathways into some core experiences that if you're an adult, you probably haven't touched on in a long time. And the challenge with that is that usually those experiences are unconscious. So it gets stirred up, you get overwhelmed, you feel really helpless, and typically your focus is on your child and your child's behaviors. But the problem is that your child and your child's behaviors is just an invitation into your own pain, into your own shame, into your own guilt, into perhaps your own sexual abuse, your own experience with domestic violence in utero, your own parental depression, your experience of depressed parents. And so your child's behavior, which is a manifestation of their attempt to work through their trauma, because that's what children's misbehaviors are. When children misbehave, it's because they've dropped into a level of their own trauma, their own brainstem activity, where all their pain is at, and that's stirred up, and that becomes their reality. And so that misbehavior, we see it as misbehavior, and that's probably one of the biggest challenges within the parenting matrix, is that we see our children's behaviors, their bad behaviors, we see them as misbehaviors. What we don't see is that our children's misbehavior is actually an attempt by them to work through traumas and painful emotional experiences that they've yet to work through. So they've got these pathways when they get stressed that they follow that are highly predictable based on the trauma. So that trauma that they've experienced is what's actually manifesting that behavior. So that behavior is being driven by that negative experience, that past negative experience. And inside the parenting matrix, we get so obsessed and consumed with the negative behaviors that that's really all we can focus on, is suppressing and controlling the behavior. In the process of doing that, we are also stressed out and overwhelmed. So you have this really powerful dynamic between the parent and the child that is unraveling all at the same time. And then we oftentimes wonder, why are children not getting better? Because in our obsession of their behaviors and our obsession to control their behaviors, we, in our own dysregulation and our projections from our own negative emotions and experiences and painful experiences and traumas, we start trying to suppress their behaviors, and usually we do it in a very chaotic, irrational way, yelling, hitting, threatening, isolating, and it just continues. And so we end up both getting stuck in this negative feedback loop. Both the parents and the children end up getting stuck in this negative feedback loop. And then what happens is time just goes past. Time just goes past. The child just gets older, but they don't heal through the trauma. And a lot of parents in that situation are prone to saying, I've tried everything. I've done it all. I've read all the books. I've attended all the courses. I've listened to all the therapy. But if you're really honest, you realize that you've just continued to be stressed out and overwhelmed. And as long as you continue to be stressed out and overwhelmed, you can't get to a place of regulation to teach your child regulation. You can't get to a place of regulation to be able to turn on your own oxytocin response, to be able to turn on your child's oxytocin response. And that's where it really becomes difficult. And that's where the parenting matrix can feel so good to a lot of parents, because it can just be easier to give a child a pill, or attempt to. Most of you who have medicated your children realize that one pill never fixes the problem before you end up with 2 or 3 or higher dosages of that same pill. The same way with diagnosis. You start with one diagnosis and you end up with 2 or 3. And at the end of the day, it's still you and your child. It's still you and your pain and your child and their pain. And what you have to do is you just have to learn how to honor your own pain. You have to learn how to honor your own stress, and you have to be willing to contain your own stress and your own overwhelm so you can be present and help your child work through theirs. Children's negative behaviors suck. I mean, they really suck. Adults' negative behaviors suck too. But at the end of the day, that's just where we're at. We're in this negative behavior pattern until our brains form new neural pathways and new neural circuitry to solve the solution of that specific behavior challenge. We're going to be stuck there. And so that's when it gets really hard. And so sometimes you just lose it. You don't know what else to do. It just gets overwhelming. You just get stressed out. You scream, you yell, you might even hit, I don't know. But you just don't know what else to do. Even though you do, just in that moment, it seems like there's nothing else you can do. And I'm going to tell you that that's okay. We don't like it. Children don't like it. It just creates more stress for your children. But sometimes we just have days like that. Sometimes there are just days where you can't pull it all together. And when that happens, I just want you to forgive yourself. Push through. Hang in there. Don't give up. Forgive yourself. Try to get back to seeing the fear and the stress your child is operating from. Try to get back to seeing the trauma your child is operating from. And when you have those overwhelming days, you just give in to those overwhelming days. And then tomorrow is a new day. Tomorrow's a new day. We start over, but you got to forgive yourself. You can't hold on to that. You can't keep carrying that. You got to keep working on it. Keep working on it. Keep working on being more and more conscious of it. So I hope that's helpful. I know some of you are probably struggling right now. I just want you to try to relax. When I say try to relax, try to get up off those negative behaviors. those negative behaviors your children have been demonstrating, they've probably been demonstrating those behaviors for years before you probably even came into their lives. So just try to give yourself a little bit of grace. Remember, in any given situation, we always have two choices. We can continue to react from the same imprints and conditioning of fear and stress and overwhelm, or we can stop, we can take 3 to 10 deep breaths, and we can choose love. And I hope you can choose love. God bless you. I hope you have a fantastic Friday night. Big Papa loves you. I hope you get well rested and wake up in the morning. I hope your homes are covered in love, and the stress is reduced. And you wake up in the morning and you're restored, you're fresh, re-energized, reinvigorated, and ready to enjoy your Saturday because you earned it. I'll talk to you tomorrow.